where your job is just one click away from 200-plus job sites. ZipRecruiter, the fastest way to hire. And right now you can try ZipRecruiter free. Just go to ZipRecruiter.com/ABC Radio. That's ZipRecruiter.com/ABC Radio. ZipRecruiter.com/ABC Radio.
The FBI has made an arrest in the threats on Jewish community centers, but says Juan Thompson of St. Louis may have only been behind 8 of them.
Federal investigators are quick to point out this is just one arrest involving a number of cases of the 130 Jewish organizations and institutions nationwide. They're taking these charges and cases like this very seriously. Adrienne Bankert, ABC News, New York.
A private school in Silicon Valley made a windfall on Snapchat.
The school invested $15,000 in the company nearly 5 years ago after a student's father noticed how popular the app was among teens. When Snap shares went public Thursday, the school raked in $24 million. This student attends the school, St. Francis High in Mountain View.
We're pretty lucky to have that much money. I hope the school uses it well for our campus and stuff like that. Yeah, I just think it's pretty wild.
Among the school's goals, invest in technology programs. Mona Rivera, ABC News.
A peanut butter substitute that was sold by an Illinois company is being recalled because E. coli has been linked to the product. I Am Health voluntarily recalling its soy nut butter after cases of the illness were found in Arizona, California, Maryland, New Jersey, and in Oregon. Health officials say some E. coli infections are mild, but others may be potentially life-threatening. This is ABC News.
Over 3 million businesses use Indeed.com for hiring. 5 times more hires are made through Indeed than any other job site. By creating the easiest, most effective hiring experience, we help businesses find great new people every day. Right now, we're giving new users a $50 credit to post a sponsored job on the world's #1 job site. Claim your $50 credit at Indeed.com/credit. Terms and conditions apply.
Daria Albinger, ABC News.
From the KMET Weather Center for Beaumont and the Pass area, we can expect a mostly sunny day. Well, it winds to 25 miles an hour with a high of 64. Going to be increasingly cloudy with patchy fog tonight. A low 47. That winds to 20 miles an hour. The patchy fog Sunday morning. We have a high wind watch in effect through Monday morning. There's a chance of rain. We'll have mostly cloudy skies. Our high 54. For the Inland Empire, we'll have a mostly sunny afternoon with a high of 68. For the Desert Cities, Italy, mostly sunny with a high of 74. I'm Rod Tanner for Smart Talk 1490 KMET.
Don't miss the next evening meeting of the Banning Beaumont Cherry Valley Tea Party. Thursday, March 9th, we'll have a video presentation by Congressman Peter Roskam talking about the proposed Tax Reform Act. We'll also have, in our continuing series, Constitution expert Douglas Gibbs talking about a new kind of union. Very exciting evening. We hope you'll join us March 9th at 5 p.m. at the Farms House Restaurant in Banning.
The following is a paid program. Views and claims expressed are those of the program producer and are not endorsed by this station. Opinions expressed are not necessarily those of radio station KMET, its management, employees, or affiliates.
Welcome. It is time for Constitution Radio here on KMET 1490 AM. Out here in the Pass area of Southern California. Glad to have you on the air with us. If you're listening online at www.kmet1490am.com, welcome. Also, you can catch the podcast later at that same website. Just find the Constitution Radio page and click the podcast button, and the SoundCloud page will come up. And also, there is a link to that page on politicalpistachio.com. All right, we have Alex on the phone with us. We have Dennis in the studio. He had to step out for just a moment. Alex, good to have you.
Good to be here.
Yeah, relaxing somewhere in your hidden bunker in Los Angeles County.
I've got my finger on the pulse of the nation.
You got a finger up. We're 2 hours as usual now. It's nice to be able to say that, not just, we wish we were 2 hours. Now it's 2 hours as usual. I've had listeners tell me they're really enjoying the 2 hours, not only because they get more Constitution Radio, but they say that you and I have become a little more lively with the extra time.
Well, we got to do something. Can't dance.
You got to be lively. You can't dance. Okay, let's get right into the nitty gritty. And this is something I think you're really probably on top of. The Democratic National Committee, they had their election. First place communist, second place Muslim. I mean, think about this now. The Democrats, I mean, they should have learned by now. You don't go full leftist. I mean, people start noticing that you're a bunch of communists. But the lessons of the past are something I guess they haven't learned from. And so Tom Perez was chosen to be the chairman of the Democratic National Committee. This is a guy who was Obama's labor secretary. He also was a part of Obama's Justice Department. And back, just to give you an idea of this guy, 26th of May, 2014, he sent out a tweet to the Oberlin College graduates, and this is what he put. Remember, don't let individualism trump community. Move from a selfie culture to a newsy culture. In other words, a collective culture. This is also a guy who, when he was a part of Obama's Justice Department back in 2012, while working under Eric Holder, sued Jacksonville, Florida, because black firefighter applicants got lower test scores on exams than white applicants, and he believed that the written tests for firefighters and police officers were discriminatory. That's why they were getting lower scores. And he also is a supporter of, are you ready for this, Sharia law. He's a big proponent of illegal aliens receiving in-state tuition discounts. He's a lifelong member of the bureaucracy, the administrative branch of government. He's a longtime bureaucrat. He's had a nice, tidy relationship with the Clintons also. He was deputy assistant attorney general for civil rights under President Bill Clinton. So he's been around a while. And he also worked hard on, he worked directly at that time, under socialist bully Waco mass murderer Janet Reno. And then he also was previously president of Casa de Maryland, a communist front group and a notorious advocacy group for illegal aliens funded by George Soros and the now deceased socialist Venezuela dictator Hugo Chavez. He's a proponent of critical legal studies, which is a legal theory derived from anti-American Marxism. Now, of course, the Democrats, they're not talking about any of that stuff. In fact, they're calling him a moderate. And I'm thinking to myself, if that's a moderate, holy cow. What's to the left?
Worse yet, the news people call him a moderate.
Oh, yeah. And with what I just fed you about him, is that moderate?
Well, these people, as you and I have discussed many times, these people live in a bubble. They only look at the people right next to them, and they think the whole country is moving in their direction. The whole country is just disgusted.
Right. Well, but here's what's interesting. So they're calling him a moderate. And then Keith Ellison, the second place finisher, he was immediately appointed as vice chair. So you got the communist and the Muslim as head of the Democratic National Committee.
Spirit of unity.
Oh, yeah. Well, so what's your thoughts, Dennis, here? Now, let's think about this. I've had Alex kind of give me a little bit, and I'm going to get his full, because Alex, all of our leftist listeners think you're you're probably the reincarnation of McCarthy. But before we go there, Dennis, what are your thoughts about what you just heard about Tom Perez? I mean, let me back up with something I said earlier. The Democrats are doubling down on what defeated them, are they not?
Yeah, they are, and I think it's becoming blatantly clear for anybody who wants to look at it that the socialist, communist, progressive, whatever adjective you want to or noun you want to throw out between themselves and the anti-border, pro-Sharia, all these things that are un-American, that those forces have co-opted very openly now the entire Democratic Party.
Well, and we're hearing about also not only that the Democrats are essentially to the left, but then we keep hearing about all these leaks with the Trump administration. Understand something, listeners. leftism, liberalism, progressivism, whatever you want to call it, they believe it with a religious fervor. They will do anything and everything. The ends justify the means. So now we've got these.
And they want to control our lives.
And they want to control our lives. And we got these, basically these Democrat Party leftist bureaucrats, which are really leftist operatives, all throughout the American government. So we've got, okay, fine, we got the president we want, we got a Congress we want, but who's the people reading the bills for them? The staffers. Who's the people that are, however many employees of the federal government that, work in, Joe Schmo office and this office and that office that carry out the laws of the United States, but they disagree with them, so they don't. I mean, how many of those people are in there?
Thousands.
Upon thousands upon thousands. Okay, let's bring McCarthy back on. Alex?
That's what they call deep government, isn't it?
Yeah. So we got racist, communists, and Muslims all throughout the Democrat Party, and now they're in charge of the DNC.
The deep state.
Say it again?
I say they call that the deep state.
The deep state. I've heard that term getting thrown around. Explain to the audience, what does deep state mean?
Well, it's a new term for me, but as I understand it, it's just what you're explaining, that these people become embedded.
Right.
They are professional. They're not voted for. They're not known, but they find themselves a niche in the government, and they use that position of power to make decisions that the boss doesn't even know are being made.
Right. Well, and from what I understand, when it comes to the deep state, as you put it, and I was reading about this just the other day, and in fact I wrote about it too, is that the how deep it goes, how long it goes, how far it goes, is not just in federal, but also you got your state and so on and so forth, and that they're actually positioning themselves to completely change the electoral lines for districts after the 2020 census so that this Trump kind of thing will never happen again. Now think about this, folks. This is the kind of games they play. That's how deep this goes and how many operatives they have deeply embedded in a. I mean, okay, Donald J. Trump has grabbed the reins. The political establishment is beside itself in fear. But when an animal is in fear, it digs its claws in and it's ready to fight. And I think that's what we're seeing. And we're seeing a leftist ideology that's willing to do anything. Ends justify the means. That is just a minor statement. They're willing to do anything to turn this country into a collectivistic, a socialistic type of system that the founding fathers never intended.
Well, Doug, just a quick comment on the deep state. The way I've heard it used is it's maybe more especially talking about the intelligence communities,
right?
Security and all that. The bureaucracy, I mean, that's been called a lot of things. You could call it deep state because it is there. Mm-hmm. You can call it the fourth branch of government. You could call it the bureaucracy, whatever you want to call it. But there is a problem with it being as embedded. And even though the new chair and the vice chair of the Democratic Party is more open, when you look at the election with Bernie hot on the heels of Hillary, and you look at what Hillary really believes and what Bernie really believes, and those were the top two, and get into Donna Brazil and get into the other leadership of the DNC, taking a look at the 7 people that make up the leadership of the DNC, and 4 or 5 of them are basically the same as what Tom Perez is. It's been very open as to what the DNC's been really for years. Just take a look at what President Obama's been doing for the last 8 years.
Well,
I'm just hoping that if there are normal Democrats out there, to use that word, that they'll see that and they'll leave that party, and there'll be more to come across in the spirit of Americanism, libertarianism, or if nothing else, anti-socialism.
Right. Well, the deep state, from my understanding, too, is a term that really goes hand in hand with another term that we've been seeing lately, shadow government.
Right.
This shadow government, I mean, if you want to use that phrase, or deep state, I mean, it's the notion that the leftist ideology is so embedded in the bureaucracy that is working against Trump. It's working against everything that we've got in place, and it's so deeply embedded. I mean, so let me back up, and this is actually a topic I wanted for later in the show, but it really kind of ties into this. Isn't that a coup? Are we not saying then that there has been a leftist coup of the United States, and that the enemy of the American system, who is behind this coup, is so embedded that it's almost impossible to eliminate them? Because here's the thing: under Obama, the rules for civil service jobs, civilian jobs in the federal government, were made it so that it was easier to bring a large number of people in and harder to get them out.
Well, you have a constitutionally elected Congress and White House, and the will of the people. If the policies that the administration is putting forth are being undermined by those that are, the bureaucrats, however you want to call them, who have all taken an oath to protect and serve and support the Constitution of the United States, the very fact that they're rebelling, is a break of that oath and should either be terminated or you need to get some legal stuff. I think there needs to be some people charged.
Well, let's talk a little history here.
And quit being polite with them and get they have their voice. You do not have your voice. If you're in the military, you follow the chain of command.
Right.
The bureaucrats should be following.
Well, we're fighting a war, first of all. That's within our own government.
Well, I understand that. But
you know what? Here's what we're going to do. When we come back after this break, I'm going to go into a little bit of history, because this has happened before. But the first time this happened, the embedment was into the court system. Now we have an embedment in the bureaucracy and the judiciary, and they are pulling out all the stops. So I'm going to go through that little bit of history, and then we're going to have Alex and Dennis give their opinion of how deep this deep state shadow government really runs after the break. What's your constitutional IQ? Your quest to learn the Constitution can be fun for the whole family. Learn about the Constitution as you play the Constitution Quest board game. Learn more at constitutionquest.com. Help me fight the good fight. This radio program is funded by advertising dollars. So, if you are a business, add Constitution Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs to your business portfolio. If you are a listener, become a patron of the businesses advertising on this program. Without advertising, your weekend dose of truth ends. With more advertising, Constitution Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs grows, and we will be on the way to win the battle to restore the Republic. To learn more, email us at constitutionspeaker@yahoo.com or visit douglasvgibbs.com.
Hi, this is Ed Hoffman, President Wholesale Capital Corporation, your direct mortgage lender. Real estate prices are still low, which means now's the time to buy your next home before they go up. Whether it's a home to live in, a vacation house, or an investment property, we can meet your mortgage financing needs to help you realize the next phase of your American dream. At Wholesale Capital Corporation, we make sure you get a loan that you can afford with terms that work for you. Wholesale Capital welcomes FHA buyers, conventional buyers, jumbo loan buyers, and we proudly help the U.S. military veterans take advantage of the zero down payment VA loan program. Nobody treats veterans better than Wholesale Capital Corporation. Seniors, if you're interested in creating an additional stream of income or just making your mortgage payment go away with a reverse mortgage, Wholesale Capital would love to help you. To speak with a loan officer who has your best interests in mind, call Wholesale Capital at 855-640-2020. That's area code 855-640-2020. Wholesale Capital Corporation, where we can close.
you got a dent in your door, a scratch in your fender, or a scratch in your door and a dent in your fender. If you need auto detailing, if you need fire shooting decals on the side of your car, if you need a rally stripe right down the middle of your hardtop, I don't care what it is. The Patriots at AllStar Collision are the place you want to go. They're the only place to go. 522 Railroad Street in Corona. Web address allstarci.com to see all that they do and what they're all about. Phone number 951-279-9161. AllStar Collision, the kings of rock and roll.
And now, back to our program.
Welcome back, Constitution Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs here on KMET 1490 AM. If you want to call into the show, real quick, Sean, because I don't have the number in front of me, what's the number if they want to dial into the program?
They can call 951-922-3532, and if they're watching online, that number is always on the screen up there.
Now, back in 1800, Thomas Jefferson won the presidential election, and his Republicans won both houses of Congress. The party who had control of the White House and Congress prior to that was the Federalist Party. Now, the Federalist Party, the name was deceiving. The term federalism, or to be a federalist, meant back then that you believed in the Constitution, that you followed this new federal idea was a good thing, and so on and so forth. But the Federalist Party was the big government party, or at least a bigger government than what people like Madison and Jefferson and George Washington envisioned. This was the party of Alexander Hamilton, and John Adams was the only president in history that was a Federalist Party member. And his big government ideas had been such a travesty and so rejected by the people, and that when the electors went to vote for president, it was a tie, because what the Federalist Party had done is embedded themselves into the electoral system. It wound up going to Congress, the outgoing Congress. Even some of the Federalists, however, Federalist Party members, were starting to lean away from John Adams. They didn't realize how far left they were leaning. So what wound up happening is, because the electors couldn't seem to decide, that no one got a majority, the election went to Congress, and Congress tied 36 times. It wasn't until a Mr. Lyons was released from jail to cast the deciding vote that Jefferson won the White House. Lyons was in jail because the year prior, the Sedition Act had been passed, the Alien and Sedition Act, and he had been arrested and fined $200 for writing an article against John Adams and calling him a couple of not very nice names. Well, they released him from jail. He went back to Congress, cast his vote for Jefferson, and that was the deciding vote.
So
now,
much for freedom
what
of the
happened?
press for Mr. Lyons.
Yeah. Now, what happened after that? Mr. Lyons, by the way, is also one of the three people during the Constitutional Convention that was taking notes, so he understood the Constitution. But that's beside the point. So now, what the Federalist Party did after that is, during the lame duck session before the inauguration of Jefferson,
which was quite a bit later than January.
Yeah, it wasn't till March.
Right.
So there was plenty of time. They created as many judicial positions as they could and started just filling the judicial system with Federalist Party advocates. In other words, Jefferson basically said that the political opposition retreated to the stronghold of the courts, where it is more difficult to dislodge them. That's what Thomas Jefferson said, and we see that today. So the left retreating to the courts and trying to control everything through the court system is nothing new. Now, because Jefferson and his Republicans had gained both houses of Congress. Now let's fast forward to today. What do we see today? What we're seeing today is a party who was down. They've lost like 1,200 seats since 2010 in the federal and state legislatures. They're losing at the ballot. They can't win at the ballot box. They've become a marginal party electorally. but they've embedded themselves not just into the judiciary like the Federalist Party did, but they've also embedded themselves in the bureaucracy. If they can't win in the ballot box, they're going to dismantle everything so that they can move everything in the direction they want.
Or at least stop you from moving in the direction.
Or at least stop you from doing, or the Republicans from doing what they want to do. I mean, that's what we're seeing here.
You're going
All right,
back
Alex.
to... Yeah,
real
you're
quick,
going
I'll
back
go to
to...
Alex first. Alex, what's your thoughts on what I just said?
Well, I should say perhaps that for the last couple of years, I've been talking about a coup.
Right.
And how it's already been successful.
Right.
Now, when you look at the Jefferson administration as a precursor to what's going on today, I look at 1917, the October Revolution. The communist does not believe in democracy, so he doesn't care that he's 50% of the country, at least the Democrats are 50% of the country, and the Republicans are the other 50%. What he cares about is having a what they call a vanguard. This is dedicated activists who will do anything to win.
Okay.
In 1917, there were only 200 Bolsheviks in Russia, and yet they took over the government, and they murdered about, plus or minus 20 million Russians. So these are serious stakes. And the people who we're playing against, they're not playing beanbag. They're
well,
playing...
looking back in history, though, they know that violent takeovers, overthrows of government, don't last.
Oh, they don't care.
Because the people saw what you did, and eventually, and it requires a totalitarian, iron fist system. So they're trying to do it from within, and they're trying to do it through the hearts and minds of the voters.
Well, what they've done, and we've discussed this many times, what they've done is they've taken over the universities, they've taken over Hollywood, they've taken over the news media, even the high schools, so that they're indoctrinating people at an enormous clip right now. We're in a race. I don't see any Republicans indoctrinating people in American values.
Well, yours truly is working on that through the Congress of Racial Equality, but that's something we'll talk about another time.
That was my next statement, was that without seeming to be too self-serving, in fact, that's what we are doing. But we are a tiny...
We're the only ones that I know of. I mean, who else is out there trying to get into the system like this? I mean, I'm working on, after school programs in the public school system. I'm going to be working through the private school and homeschool system starting in August. I've got Congress of Racial Equality with their chapter offices. And we're trying to get to these cultures who have been, to be frank, lied to.
Well, you're also familiar, Doug, because you were involved last year with the Truth in Textbook effort that was very successful in Texas a couple of years ago, and it's right now training to be ready for the 1st of May, when the California proposed textbooks are open for review.
Right.
And they're looking to go through that for misstatements, omissions, and all of the political correctness.
And as much as I expected it to be really bad, it was worse when I started going through these books.
Yeah.
So definitely fasten your seatbelt on that one. Well, and then also and it's not like we're being told these things or that we're not being exposed to these things. And once again, it's not that we're trying to be self-serving here, but it was like we're the only ones that seem to be putting this information out. Enemies Within Movie, enemieswithinmovie.com, Enemies Within Trevor Loudon's movie points fingers and uses the facts to point them out. I mean, Democratic Socialists of America, Communist Party USA, Muslim Brotherhood infiltrated. We've got over 100 members of Congress that couldn't pass a background check to be a janitor
on a military base.
On a military base, well, in a federal building.
That's right. And to Alex's point, as Trevor talks about and as Alex brought up, socialism are experts in getting the few to control the many.
Right.
They get their hands on the levers of power. They, if you look at the number of Communist Party members in Russia, it's not 50%. You look at the people that are in the Politburo and those that are given authority. It's kind of like what happens with the DNC now, and how they appoint people not out of the general population of the Democratic Party. You have to be a left winger. You have to be, on that hard ideological bench, to get anywhere. So they continue to grow their power within the party, and they have, as I said earlier, they have co-opted the Democratic Party, just like the socialists would like to co-opt, the American government. Even though the majority of Americans would rise up in rebellion against this, the trick is, again, going back to what Alex was saying, between the media and the education.
Between the media and the education,
making them aware of what's really going on.
Well, between what Alex was talking about, the education, the media, and the entertainment industry, and so on and so forth, it's not just indoctrination, but people who are our allies, other conservatives, believe some of the stuff that's ridiculous. I mean, let me put it this way. Let me just talk about this. How many times do we use the term capitalism? How many conservatives have you ever talked to about capitalism had a sour response? And how many people actually know that capitalism was a term created by Karl Marx so that he could try to show a contrast between his socialism and capitalism? And it's an ism. It's a bad thing. I mean, this is a free market, a dynamic market, whatever you want to call it. But capitalism was actually a term used. Now, granted, this country's great enough. We can take things that are designed to hurt us and turn them around to our benefit. But do people even understand it? I mean, you talk about capitalism in a room full of conservatives, half of them will go, ugh. Or what about the social issues? You mentioned a social issue in a room full of conservatives, and half of them are walking out the room. You talk about government and socialism. Today's millennials couldn't tell you what communism or socialism really is. All they know is that they've been told it's a good thing, and that actually we're already socialists. That's why we have fire departments and police departments. That's socialism. That's what I'm being told by millennials. They don't even understand this. All they know is they've been taught that this is the future, and the future is us, the 99%.
As compared to the elitists.
As compared to those elite rich people, which are all a bunch of Republicans, obviously, from their point of view.
In the movie Trumbo, which was a very good movie that, as usual, only told one side of the story, Dalton Trumbo is talking to his daughter, and she says, "Are you a communist?" And he says, "Yes, I am." She says, "What is a communist?" He says, "Well, if you were at school and there was a child who had no lunch and you had a sandwich, would you share it with them?" And she said, "Yes." And he says, "Well, then you're a communist." That's what they're teaching.
Right.
What the genius of the left, again, as we have said many times, is their ability to destroy.
Right. That's all they know how to do. Matter of fact, Jesse Lee Peterson wrote an article about a few weeks ago that said all the liberals know how to do is destroy. That was the title.
Well, and going back to the story that Alex just told, the daughter is sharing the sandwich. It's her choice, to help someone else out. So it's a charity deal. Whereas in communism, power is at the end of a gun. And it's the government mandating things. It is a redistribution.
I can't count how many leftists I've talked to where I said, you know what, I agree with you on everything across the board except for how it's done. We should feed the hungry. We should help the homeless. We should help the poor. I just don't think it should be through government. Well, I believe in community, just not through government.
The purpose of government is to protect the security, the safety, the rights, and the liberty of the individuals. That's the role of government.
Well, to just make sure the rules are followed, that we have agreed to follow as a society. But see, the rules that we agreed to follow as a society is no longer those rules. Now they're making the rules rather than us as a society.
Well,
that's part
they're
of the problem.
selectively figuring out which rules they do or do not want to enforce, rather than not.
And
that
they pick
happens
the winners
in state government, federal government.
What's just and unjust is now decided by them because suddenly we're not a godly society anymore. Now we're a government society. All right, Alex, 3 more minutes before we go to break. I want your final thoughts about what we've been talking about before we go to break.
Well, when you look at the reality of Marxism next to the promise of Marxism, the schism is so wide that people can't even contemplate it.
Right.
For instance, in 1931-32, and I'll never stop talking about this. I've said it before, I'll say it again. 1931-32, Stalin starved 6 million Ukrainians on purpose. Right. And so the girl that has the sandwich at lunch, it isn't a question of sharing the sandwich. It's a question of taking the sandwich from her, giving it to someone else, and watching her slowly starve to death. That's what the reality is. And they don't teach that in school. It's a simple lesson. It's a lesson with all the morality and the right on our side. But our spokesmen are so timid and so cowed that they won't speak up for what's decent and right in this world. In one of my essays, I talked about how they have established Jesus now as a Marxist revolutionary.
Right.
And Jesus, I point to the places in the Bible where Jesus talks about capitalism, and he's in favor of it. The whole notion is wrong, and yet these idiot ministers and pastors and priests and rabbis are constantly teaching the evil side of the equation. And what are our millennials to think? They only get the one message.
Well, now, when you talk about that too, why didn't you know? Let me back up. The lesson for Trumbo's daughter isn't really about the sandwich; it's about the grade. You worked really hard to get your A, honey, but there's someone in the back of the class getting an F. So I tell you what. So we can be fair in our society, in our social society. Half of your grade goes to the kid in the back that did no work, so they can get a C, but you also get a C. But isn't that fair? Everybody's the same at the finish line. That is ridiculous. But see, that's what it comes down to. It's a difference of, are we equal at the starting line or are we equal at the finish line? We're equal. We're supposed to be equal at the starting line in the eyes of God and in the eyes of the law. But what we're capable of doing, what we do as individuals, that may change how we finish, and that's okay. That's what individualism is all about. So see, that's dangerous to these people because people start thinking for themselves. That's the reason why Pol Pot and Stalin killed the educated. That's why they removed them from their society, because if you can think for yourself, you're dangerous. After the break, we're going to discuss how this same kind of thinking has also infiltrated itself into our allies. In fact, one of Donald Trump's newly appointed advisors has gotten it very wrong on a particular topic when we return.
Hi, this is Ed Hoffman, President, Wholesale Capital Corporation, your direct mortgage lender. Real estate prices are still low, which means now's the time to buy your next home before they go up. Whether it's a home to live in, a vacation house, or an investment property, we can meet your mortgage financing needs to help you realize the next phase of your American dream. At Wholesale Capital Corporation, we make sure you get a loan that you can afford with terms that work for you. Wholesale Capital welcomes FHA buyers, conventional buyers, jumbo loan buyers, and we proudly help the U.S. military veterans take advantage of the zero down payment VA loan program. Nobody treats veterans better than Wholesale Capital Corporation. Seniors, if you're interested in creating an additional stream of income or just making your mortgage payment go away with a reverse mortgage, Wholesale Capital would love to help you. To speak with a loan officer who has your best interests in mind, call Wholesale Capital at 855-640-2020. That's area code 855-640-2020. Wholesale Capital Corporation, where we can close.
The true patriots of AllStar Collision have been proudly serving the Inland Empire for over 20 years. Built on honesty, integrity, quality, and old-fashioned customer service, we offer lifetime warranties for our work, and every vehicle serviced by AllStar Collision is washed, detailed, the headlights polished, fluids are checked and topped off, safety checked, and returned in showroom condition. We offer free estimates, are approved by major insurance companies, and accept all claims for all cars and trucks. We use computerized frame straightening to factory specifications, offer fiberglass body repair and paint, free local pickup and delivery, and after-hours towing. Mention this radio program at drop-off and receive $100 off or a free rental car for up to 5 days during your repair. Visit us at allstarci.com or at 522 Railroad Street in Corona. Call us at 951-279-9161. We are the kings of wreck and roll.
Don't miss the next evening meeting of the Banning Beaumont Cherry Valley Tea Party. Thursday, March 9th, we'll have a video presentation by Congressman Peter Roscom talking about the proposed Tax Reform Act. We'll also have, in our continuing series, Constitution expert Douglas Gibbs talking about a new kind of union. Very exciting evening. We hope you'll join us March 9th at 5 p.m. at the Farms House Restaurant in Banning.
Welcome back, Constitution Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs. And that last ad you just heard was for the Banning Beaumont Cherry Valley Tea Party meeting coming up on the 9th, right up here in the Pass area. Did you know you have a tea party in the area, folks? If you haven't been to the tea party meeting, you're missing out. They always have great speakers. Plus, also, I always receive the opportunity to give a Constitution presentation. And we will be talking about a new kind of union. And what I mean by that is different than what had been in the past prior to America. A new kind of union that had never been experienced. Welcome back to the program. Our next topic, Trump new national security advisor, well, he's breaking from the White House's view of Islam. This is Lieutenant General H.R. McMaster, and he needs to understand something about Islamic terrorism. Jihadists are following the teachings of the Quran. Now, the New York Times reported a few days ago that McMaster and his language regarding Muslims and the language used by President Donald Trump regarding Muslims are not in full agreement. McMaster told his staff that Muslims who commit terrorist acts are perverting their religion, which is a talking point to the liberal left, and a false message Muslims are used trying to point people away from Islam as a source for terrorism. He said the label radical Islamic terrorism was not helpful. Remember, Donald Trump used that exact wording in his joint address to the joint session of Congress, that it's a false message, that it and was not helping because terrorists are, and this is Mr. McMaster's words, un-Islamic. This is a view that's dead opposite of what his predecessor, Michael T. Flynn, who resigned last week under pressure regarding a phone call with a Russian diplomat held, which is why the Democrats did what they did did what they could to get rid of Flynn. That was the whole reason why Flynn was under attack. He didn't hold the right view of Islam, but now they've got a guy that's closer to what they want to attack McMaster. And now understand that General McMaster was not Trump's second choice either. His first choice to replace Flynn was Robert S. Howard, a retired Navy vice admiral, but he turned it down. So Obama's third choice overall, General McMaster, he seems to be closer to the positions of Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton than that of the conservatives and President Trump. In the overall scheme of things, he is, after all, like I said, the third choice for the position. I think this could be problematic. I think it could serve to embolden Islamic terror groups. Dennis, why don't you start on this one?
Well, you're exactly right. I think I mentioned last week a video, and I won't go through it here now, other than in general, it was a bunch of 3 or 4 clerics that were leading talking to a group of probably about 200 or so fellow Muslims. And they were mocking the term radical Islam, saying there is no such thing as radical Islam, and they would go through the doctrines, whether it be toward homosexuals or whether it be toward other things, and he would state what the view was, and then he'd ask the audience if they agreed, and of course they were all unanimous in agreeing, and he went through 4 or 5 things like that concerning jihad, concerning if you're not a Muslim and your status, in a Muslim society, Sharia law. And at the end, he basically said, see, this is just regular Islamic teachings. There's nothing radical about it at all. And to your point with the General McMaster, it is not a small percentage of people that are radical. It is just them, as you say, following their teachings. And if you talk to any of, or try to get any quotes from the ranking people that come from the highest graduate schools of Islam out of Egypt, they all to a man, share the same view that is a very hard line.
Well, jihad comes in many forms. So
Right.
Part of the difficulty is we've been taught to believe that jihad is only violent terrorism.
Yeah, there's civilization jihad.
Well, hijrah is jihad by immigration. There's different. There's financial jihad. There's there's all different ways of committing jihad. Just because a Muslim says, well, they don't understand the violence and know it, well, they're still a part of committing jihad. They just do it in a different manner, first of all. So I'm going to tell you right now, it is my firm belief, and I've talked to so many former Muslims about this, majority of those who hold the Quran as being their law, they are committing jihad, majority of them, in one way or another. Now, that said, is there such thing as a moderate Muslim? Yes and no. I believe that there are moderate Muslims in the sense that there are those who may not fully understand what they believe, or they don't like the violent part, but they that's all they know. They've been raised on it. So there's those. But I think the majority of your quote-unquote moderate Muslims are actually Muslims who are in a Muslim society, so they can't not be Muslim, but they don't practice Islam because there's something wrong, so they don't really consider themselves Muslim. But they don't dare say something because, well, that is apostasy. And those are the people, I think, that who are really the moderate Muslims. But given the chance to get out of Islam, in a heartbeat, they're gone. All right. Alex, what's your thoughts about McMaster's statement?
Well, I've just bought McMaster's book, Dereliction of Duty.
Mm-hmm.
But I've been working so hard on my book review for this week that I haven't cracked it yet.
Okay.
My feeling is that there are lots of Muslims who are like lots of Christians, and that is that they're that religion in name only.
Mm-hmm.
They don't necessarily believe that there is a living God. They don't necessarily believe that it's their duty to take over the world. But at the same time, when they have children, the children seem to so often radicalize, become extremists, become violent, and so you got a skip generation there.
Right.
We got a real problem, and again, it's because we honor a person's religion that we allow the things that come in with Muslimism, the Sharia, the jihad, all of those come in, and we don't honor them, we don't accept them, but because it's kind of like the human shield. You don't want to shoot a kid, but there's a terrorist standing behind the kid, holding him by the pigtail.
Right.
They put us in a position where we don't have a good way to go.
Well,
really
I had lunch with a Muslim a couple weeks ago, and the woman was a very nice woman. And had she not told me she was Muslim, I would have probably never known. She came across as very personable, and she told me 3 or 4 times that she loves her religion and that it bothers her. She's frustrated that Islam is equated with violence because of the jihadists, the terrorists. And I told her, I said, well, and she kept saying, well, you guys, people need to stop thinking that way. And I said, no, they're going to think that way because there are people in the name of Islam doing this. So if this is not supposed to be in the name of Islam, then inside your own community, the Islamic community, you need to clean house. Otherwise, that's the perception. I mean, remember, I'm talking to a Muslim, so I'm not going to be like, the Quran's the source of it, you knucklehead. But, but I wanted her to understand, she's so, pointing fingers at the perception. Well, of course that's the perception. It's like the black youth who's complaining that he's being stereotyped with the pants hanging halfway down his butt, and playing the, yeah, exactly. He's got the hand gestures going to whatever. Well, of course you're being treated like the stereotype. You're acting like the stereotype. Don't act like the stereotype. Maybe you won't be treated like one. So Islam is sitting there saying, well, we're a peaceful religion and these people don't represent us. Well, if that's the case, quit getting on to me for having that perception. Fix it. But here's the problem. They can't fix it because the source is the Quran.
We allow people to believe what they want to believe. And they can believe in nothing. They can believe in something that other people might think is really crazy, and that's true of most people. Just like you could think about political beliefs. Mm-hmm. The thing that to me is the concern isn't so much the belief, even though belief is what is prompting the behavior, but it is actually the behavior. You don't have the right to do certain things to other people. Period. Right. You can believe what you want, and you can say that's a justification for your actions, and they won't put you in jail for your belief, but they will put you in jail for your actions. And when you do a survey of whether it be moderates or just Muslims in general, whether it be in the United States, it's still like over 50% of the people that are in the U.S. that identify with being Muslim, that they would say, maybe they don't fully understand it, but they nonetheless say that they support Sharia. And Sharia and the Constitution, there is no compatibility between the two.
No, and I'm glad you brought that up, because I was thinking the same thing.
That's my concern, is, you can be a Muslim in the United States, you can be a Muslim anywhere you want, just like you can be a Buddhist or a Catholic. I don't care what you are. Believe what you will. But if your belief system, as you espouse it, politically would undermine the Constitution of the United States, which is the thing that makes this country stand alone in the world with the enshrinement of liberty and God-given rights, and those would be under attack. You would not have freedom of religion. You would not have freedom of expression. You would not have many, many freedoms. Right. You would be constrained under Sharia. And so, but you can't be a Muslim and say you don't really believe in Sharia.
Well, it's like this woman. She says, "I love America. I don't know why they want to change it." Well, but they do.
Well, she's not on board with her own belief system.
Well, here's the thing. Here's the thing that I explain to people often. Do you know which country the Muslims live in that they are more safe than any other country in the Middle East is? Israel. Israel is the safest country in the Middle East for a Muslim. Think about that for a second. So if Islam is not the problem, why is that the answer? That the safest country in the Middle East is the one that's in that big mess, is the one country that's not Muslim majority.
Well, it's similar to what we're trying to do here. We respect your right to exist, your right to have family and travel and vote. I mean, Muslims have full citizenship. Come
here, assimilate. Don't try to change the system.
Exactly.
And that's a conversation I had with the Muslim woman I spoke with a couple weeks ago, because she was born in the United States and she's close to my age, and her parents immigrated here, prior to that, 50s, 60s, late 50s, early 60s, and it's like I told her, immigrants, be they Muslim, Hispanic, or whomever, came to America to be Americans. Now, they don't come to America to be Americans. They come to America to make America be where they came from.
Or they want
or at least
the
that's the goal.
benefits of America.
Well, in the process. But that's just milking the system until you can get what you want. It's a way of destroying it. But and it's an incredible thing going on because Americans are See, the difficulty is during the 20th century, there was these totalitarian systems that targeted a particular group. And therefore, we want to make sure we're not that. And because we're good people. And Islam plays on that. They know we are good people and we don't want to be like the Nazis were to the Jews or whatever. So therefore, it's, so they're trying to appeal to our good side. And for those who think emotionally first, they buy into it.
Well, and to a broader degree, whether it be socialist, whether it be Sharia, whether it be progressive, is all of these groups are wonderful in co-opting, again, the American language, the American symbols. They'll wrap themselves in the flag and talk about freedoms and sharing and fairness, all things that Americans believe in. We believe in being fair, but we don't believe in the government making it, quote, fair by the government stepping in.
Well, I believe in community, but I believe in community through individualism.
Fair opportunity, but you don't necessarily.
We are upon a hard break, so we need to go to break. But after the break, we'll be back. Constitutional Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs. We'll see you after the break.